We are going live. We're going live. We might already be live. What's up, everybody? It's Tyler with Hooksets Are Free. Welcome back to another live stream and another unboxing. It is Thursday night, April the 7th of 2022. Hope you guys are doing well. Whether you managed to jump in here live or you're watching back on the replay, I'm going to give people a couple minutes to hop in here. I'm going to pour myself a whiskey. This bottle was a gift from my brother. I wish I had Debo on here right now because this is actually from a distillery in Iowa that I hadn't heard of until my brother did a podcast and interviewed these guys from Cedar Ridge. So this is their single malt whiskey, 92 proof, but it drinks a little bit stronger than that. So I'm going to pour myself a little glass of this whiskey from Iowa. Not technically a bourbon, but yeah, single malt whiskey. So hope you guys are doing well. What's up, Grayson? What's up, Adam? How you guys doing tonight? Good to see you guys in here. Hope all is going well. I've got a little package, as you can see here. This was actually an impulse purchase after our friend Eliza mentioned the deals going on at Sportsman's Outfitters last week. So I ended up doing a little bit of shopping myself and pulled the trigger on some cool baits. So I have not yet opened this thing and don't even 100% remember what's in there. So I'm excited. Mostly hard baits, I think. If not all hard baits, we'll see. We're going to run through this in just a moment once we get, a handful more people in here. But what's up, Daniel? How are you doing tonight? Good to see you in here as well. Glad to hear that you guys are doing well, Grayson, Adam. I am doing well myself. It feels like this week flew by. I don't know if that's just me or what, but yeah, the last 4 or 5 days have just kind of zoomed by, and I'm not mad about it. I am ready for some true spring weather. It's been cold and windy here, so I've been kind of hunkered down the last few days, busy with work and such. Today I was on dad duty with the kids, and I am the next 2 days as well. Sorry for my disheveled hair. I was wearing a beanie earlier today and did not put on a cap before this live stream. So my hair looks a little out of control. I need it cut, by the way. Adam says, hoping to throw a frog for a bit tomorrow. Sweet, man. I am definitely jealous of that. I can't wait to throw a frog around a little bit. But it's going to be a while until I get to do so. Here are a couple of my favorite frogs, by the way. Jackal Gavacho, Jackal Kara, Evergreen Shower Blows. Got these bad boys just sitting here on the table because I'm at the point with a lot of my lures that I really need to create a second box for each of these techniques. And I know that sounds a little bit obnoxious. That is the case for some of my lures. Like you guys know, for jerk baits, for example, I have 2 boxes, but I'm at the point where with frogs and topwater walking baits, things like that, that I definitely need 2 boxes for each of those techniques. And so I've got kind of my spillover still hanging out here. So it is what it is. But I wish I could throw a frog. I'm probably still 2 to 3 months away from having any frogability, if you will. You throw the Stanley toad a lot. Well, right on, man. I do too. I just consider frogs and toads slightly different techniques. Which toad do you throw mostly? Because I've got one sitting right here, and of the Stanley frogs, I really like the top toad. So this is the one that is more of like a hollow body that is designed to go with this double frog hook that Stanley makes called the Stanley Double Take, I think. It's got just a little bit of weight on it, but not much. And this thing is a great frog, but I also use the Stanley Ribbit, right? Here I've actually got it rigged on an underspin. So kind of an unconventional way of rigging the Ribbit, but I do like Stanley toads as well, but I don't consider those traditional frogs. So Simon Zare in the house. What's up, my man? How you doing tonight? South Jersey fisherman Matt is in the house. What's up, dude? How you doing? Tim Dunn, my man. Tim says, I'm digging the new Z-Man frog. I can rig it up how I like it and it floats. Yeah, the oh, what do they call it? The toads? I don't know what it's called, but part of that design reminds me of this bait right here. I mean, obviously, if you look at them side by side, you'll see a lot of similarities, but this guy is the larger size of the goat. They call it the billy goat, and you'll notice that the kickers are almost identical, and that is a way that a lot of people are rigging this largest size of the goat. You know, it comes in three different sizes. The baby goat, which is just a little 3-inch guy, which like I've got rigged up here on this Mini Max chatterbait. So tiny little guy that would be ideally best on a small swim jig or chatterbait or on like a Ned rig, maybe even a drop shot. And then the middle size is like a perfect swim jig, chatterbait, wobblehead, and kind of do everything type of bait. You can flip with it, and literally you could do anything and everything with it. Whereas this large size, the billy goat, is really best for running on top as a toad or using as a larger flipping bait. So this thing is like 4.25, 4.25, yeah. So it's interesting because that toads bait that they just put out, you know, it was fun to watch along through the design process as they were asking for, you know, people's feedback on social media and things like that. But yeah, functionally, I don't know how different it's going to be than like that goat, the billy goat. So we will see. I mean, obviously, I'll pick it up at some point to just see what it's like. I think it's got a lot more meat on it. It's a wider profile for sure. You could use a double hook on it as opposed to a single. But yeah, I'm curious about it for sure. Oh, the goat toads. Yeah, that's right. They even use the name goat. Interesting. Daniel says I picked up the Spro Flappin' Frog 65. That's the first one you showed. I've never tried before. No, I haven't showed it. I don't have the Spro Flappin' Frog. Um, I don't have any of those Elastec style frogs at this point right now that are new on the market. The Spro, the Savage Gear Duratec frog, or the Z-Man Goat Toads. Those are all baits that I look to pick up in the next couple of months, but have not been in a rush because I'm really not going to be fishing those baits until summertime. So they're kind of on the back burner for me for now because they might as well be, right? Um, you know, they're not crazy expensive, so there's no reason for me to pull the trigger on that. I was gonna say in general, like I've been waiting for later in the season to buy top water baits, but I think I got a couple of top waters in here, if we're being honest. So I'm gonna rip this open in 1 second. We got 7 people in here, 6 thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button for me real quick, and we'll get right into this in a second. Guggen Slayer, what's up, man? Adam says, saw the new frog from Fish Lab. previewed tonight on another channel. I have not seen that yet. Interesting. No, Daniel, this is actually the Stanley Top Toad. This is not a Laztec, but rather just a standard soft plastic made of plastisol. So it is hollow, but this was one of the originals on the market, and there has become much more of a need for this type of bait, or I guess it's just been recognized more on the market the last handful of years. So Stanley really did it first, and now a lot of other companies are doing it. So um, this is a hook that is designed by Stanley that has a screw lock keeper, and it's designed for this bait specifically. So cool thing about this, because it's a standard soft plastic, it's very easy to rig on this screw lock. It's got a meaty head, that goes to about here. And then what you'll see is that when you actually slide this thing up over, that there are two ways to leave this hook. One, you can just leave it over the top like that, and this is not nearly as weedless, but you get a lot more bite. Hookup ratio is going to be a little bit better. Or because of the way that this bait is designed, you can tuck these hooks right in here. You see, I didn't go perfectly in straight there, but you can tuck that in, skin hook that, and then this thing is quite a bit more weedless. And then when you set the hook, that'll pop out. So pretty cool design there. Also has a hole in the back to let water out. So this is a great bait, but it's made by Stanley. And you're right, it is a little bit different. So, all right. Let's move on. Guggen Slayer says, I'm on a really good jig bite. I think you mentioned a jig last week when I was live, which is pretty cool. I told you that I have one tied up. I couldn't remember the name of it, but in retrospect, I don't know why I didn't remember it. It's the 6 Sense Divine Hybrid jig. It really is kind of like a hybrid between like an Arky style and a swim jig. Well, I opened this upside down, so literally everything is upside down in here. But let's see here. So this was per Eliza's recommendation last week on the live stream. She mentioned there were some killer deals going on at Sportsman's Outfitters. And while I'm at it, I'll just check for you guys real quick to see if these deals are still going on, because you guys might be a little bit tempted to pick some of these things up, considering the prices that I paid for them. Now, this invoice doesn't actually tell me what I paid per bait, but I'll just go ahead and look them up real quick. To see if they're still on sale. So, yeah, it looks like they are. At least the first one that I looked up. So, keep these guys in mind. And if you like what you see, go hop on sportsmansoutfitters.com to save some sweet money on these baits. Honestly, I don't know that their retail prices are necessarily totally accurate, but the prices that you'd pay for these are significantly better than retail. So even if their retail price listed is a little bit steep, these deals are good. Okay. Now let's just start with Berkeley, since these are sitting on top. I did pick up a couple of the Fritz sides. Now, I showed you guys recently that I've got like a couple of the Fritz side 5 Junior, and I'm excited to throw those. So check this little dude out. When you compare it to my hand, I mean, I do not have big hands. This 5 Junior is a tiny little bait and is a shallow diving flat-sided crankbait. So I'm really excited about this bait. They make, a 9, a 7, a 5, and then they make the 5 in actually 3 different sizes. So, uh, the 9, 7, and 5 refer to the diving depth of these baits. So this 5 is going to dive anywhere from 2 to 5 feet deep, and this is the small size, not the standard size, but they make a 5 Junior, and then a 5 biggin is what they call it. So I picked up 2 of the biggin sizes, and you can see that right here. I'm going to open these up for you because you guys know I don't like to keep things in their packages. There's really no reason for that. My intention in buying everything is to use them, even if I don't always use them. Uh, I don't buy these just for no reason and to just have them and have them sit on a peg or whatever. So I'll show you in comparison. This color here, I think, was called uh, natural green craw or something like that. HD green craw. So size wise, you can see that this 5 biggin dwarfs the 5 Junior. This is a big body flat side crankbait. However, it dives pretty shallow. So let's go ahead and compare size wise with the other Frit sides. As I told you, I don't think I have any of the regular 5s, but I do have like a 7 and a 9 that we can compare side by side. And I don't throw those baits as much as I thought that I would. So here, this 5 biggin is actually larger than the 7, and up next to the 9, it is the same body as the 9. So how cool is that? Instead of a medium to deep diving flat side crankbait that you get with the 9, here you get the same body but in a shallow diving flat side crankbait that's going to go no more than 5 feet deep. So you can see that the bills are significantly different in length and in shape. With these HD colors, you get the frosted bill, but you see that the 9 has this coffin shaped bill and the 5 has this kind of hybrid, mostly square, but also a little bit rounded off. I don't know what the technical name for that shape of bill would be, but um, that is cool for sure. So the 7 has that coffin style bill as well. But once you get down to the 5, and check this out, I have this same color in the 5 Junior, and now I've got it in the 5 Biggin. So how cool is that? Tiny little guy and a giant guy. So both are going to imitate a crawfish really well in clearer water. You get that green color, but I also picked up a color that is the HD brown craw. And with this one, you get a little bit more orange and red to it. So I like that. And I'll probably be throwing both of these interchangeably. Matt calls it a thumbnail bill. Okay. I did not know that, but interesting. Simon says, did you ever think of sending me fishing frogs last year, but never did? I can't remember. Sorry. I very well might have. And I do have like a spillover box of frogs that I rarely use. So if you follow up with me about that, I will likely send you a couple of frogs. Let's talk about that offline. But if I did, I apologize for saying that I would and then not following through on that. But yeah, if you contact me outside of this, we can certainly talk about that. So here is that HD brown craw color pattern, which is lovely. Get that orange belly. And the frit side, you can see that these weights are exposed, really well balanced, super tight wiggling bait. So uh, these baits will imitate a larger crawfish and a larger meal to bass, just displace a little bit more water than say that 5 junior. So when I saw that they had the bigger size in the shallower diver, uh, I've been interested in this bait for sure. But the frit side is not necessarily a cheap bait. It's like 10 bucks roughly. I think maybe retail could be a little bit more than that, but I think on Sportsman's Outfitters website, it's running for $8.49 right now. So at that price tag, I was kind of tempted and picked up 2 of them. So that's the first item in here. Um, Next up, another hard bait from Berkeley, and this is the Chapo 75. So here is a top water bait, and this is, I said I wasn't going to get top water baits until closer to that time of the year. However, this is a new size of the Chapo, you know, per the success that the Whopper Plopper 75 had when it was released and has had since then. This is a new size for the Berkeley Chapo, and I'm excited about it. So this guy is 75 millimeters and weighs a half of an ounce. So very comparable in size to the Whopper Plopper 75, but let's talk about the differences. First of all, this color is HD bluegill, and it is about as realistic as it comes. I mean, that thing is gorgeous. So, unlike the traditional Whopper Plopper, what you get out of the Chapo is a hard plastic tail. This is not flexible. So, you do have to be careful if you're fishing this thing around riprap or rocks or casting directly at, wood or other structure like that. This thing, like most hard baits, where their bills could crack, the tail of the Chapo could crack certainly. So I like how freely this tail spins, and it does put out a different frequency and sound in the water than the Whopper Plopper. Now let me pull out the Whopper Plopper 75 so that you guys can see kind of side by side how these two compare, because first impressions for me are that this guy is just a hair fatter, but I could be wrong about that. So here is just about the most realistic color in the Whopper Plopper 75. This is called perch or yellow perch. I'm not sure. But when you compare these color patterns, I mean, I definitely prefer the HD bluegill. And I was actually wrong. The Whopper Plopper has a deeper belly, certainly. So in terms of water displacement, probably a little bit more out of the Whopper Plopper, but pretty similar design here. But like I said, the Whopper Plopper actually has a flexible plastic tail. So it's just a little bit more durable than the Chapo, but of course it is more expensive, and it makes a really classic Whopper Plopper noise, whereas the Chapo makes a higher pitch sound that is just different. The frequency and the vibration that this thing puts out is slightly different. So, if you're a fan of the cheaper price tag and just that slightly different action, then you kind of might as well, right? So, I have the Chapo in a few different sizes. I fish the largest size, the 120, probably most frequently because it is the loudest. But I also like the 105, which is their middle size. And then I don't necessarily love the 90. Um, and you guys know I don't love the 90 of the Whopper Plopper either. So, uh, I like the 120 size Chapo better than I like the 130 size Whopper Plopper. But I like the 105 just like I like the Whopper Plopper 110. And the 75 is a size of the Whopper Plopper that I've been all about the last couple of seasons. It's arguably been my favorite, um, especially for catching numbers of fish. So when I saw that color in stock and on sale of the Chapo on Sportsman's Outfitters, I kind of had to pick one up. And that guy was on sale for $8.99. They say retail price is $11.99. I don't know exactly whether that's accurate or not, but at $8.99, I decided to pull the trigger on that guy. So Bruce Nichols in the house. What is up, dude? Matt says that the Fritzside is the only Berkeley crankbait that he likes. Okay. Well, fair enough. To each his own, right? I mean, you don't have to like other Berkeley crankbaits. There are a few others that I like. I like the Dredger, especially in its shallower versions. Uh, I like the Digger. Okay, I don't necessarily go for the square bull or, I do actually like the flicker shad, especially in the shallower divers, because essentially you just get a shad wrap with a rattle in it, and I do like that bait. But um, Donnie Davison, Justin, how you doing, man? You say the fusion hooks aren't as quality as what River to Sea uses, in your opinion. Um, I don't know. I feel like that could be argued. The Whopper Plopper has thicker gauge hooks on them for sure, and they are more of a wide gap than what you get with the Chapo, and those fusion hooks being more of a traditional round bend. Um, Now that said, Berkeley fusion hooks come in an EWG and a round bend, so um, I like the fact that they have been a little bit more strategic in which hooks they're using on which baits. Though I was kind of surprised to see that the Berkeley Stunna comes with all EWG hooks on it, right? We talked about that last live stream when I was talking about the Stunna. Um, that's not necessarily my style to use EWG hooks on a jerk bait per se. So I might actually swap out some of those hooks and at least put one of the EWGs on that Chapo 75, but we'll see about that. And Justin says the only size that he uses on the Whopper Plopper is the 75 now. Yep, I hear you. Bruce says, I have a Plopper 30F plan on trying it out tomorrow. What do you mean? 130? I assume you're talking about the 130 because the smallest size that they make is the 60, and it's micro. Check this little guy out. There's no way they would make a 30 size. This 60 is as small as you could imagine or want to have in a Whopper Plopper. Um, in fact, I could not dial in my gear well enough last year to be able to throw this thing and get the action or the sound out of it that I wanted to. I think it really needs to be thrown on like an ultralight with super light line. So, yeah, I assume you're talking about the 130. They make two versions. One is silent, one is rattling. So I'm not sure if the 130F is the silent version or not. Let's see here. I bet I've got them both sitting in here. Yeah, the F is rattling. Ow. 130F, rattling. Now, I've talked about the fact that I don't love the design of the 130 in that it bends a little too easily, and then you get that separation between the tail and the body, and it picks up grass a little bit too easily. So, One thing that I do recommend doing is using a swivel on the front of the 130 and the 90 in particular that have this original design where you get that separation between the body and the tail. Because if you get grass caught in there, the whole bait is going to start turning on its way back to you, and you're going to get a remarkable amount of line twist and probably end up backlashing. And your odds of losing the bait during a backlash go up pretty significantly. That 130 size is pretty heavy. So if you're throwing it on braid, you need to make sure that you're using very heavy braid. All right. Daniel says the Chapo's $11.99 regular price, $10.19 on discount tackle. Yeah, so $8.99, guys. Keep that in mind. Sportsman's Outfitters, great deals right now. I do see a couple Berkeley soft baits in here. Oh, and can you guess what they are? They're purple bags. I mean, I have somewhat of a serious addiction to Maxent that I've been picking up the colors of the baits that I like or want to try like crazy this off season. So I've got a decent stockpile of Maxent right now. Probably 20 or more bags. Now that's a variety of different profiles and such. So it's not like I've got 20 bags of the same bait and color by any means. In fact, I don't think I've got more than like 2 of any color of the same bait. So this right here is the 4.25 inch flatworm. Now, this is a newer size of the flatworm. I believe the original flatworm was 3.5 inches. I'm not 100% sure on that. Let's see if I can find a flatworm somewhat easily. I've got the hitworms, I've got the tubes, the chigger craws, the generals, more hitworms and chigger craws. The little guy, that little trooper. Little trooper, chigger craws, hitworms, the D worm, chigger craws, tubes, chigger craws, tubes, flatworm. So this is the flatworm in the new size as well, but okay, yeah, 3.6 inches. I can see it sitting right in here. Was the original size. So 4.25 is the new size. It's a step up in size. So you get a bigger profile for the flatworm. And you guys know, oh man, why do they? Whatever, I don't care. But that's kind of annoying that they make you rip them now because that's not how the packaging used to be. So since we're going to get our hands nasty anyway, I'll show you guys the size comparison between the original 3.6 and the new 4.25 size. So here's the 3.6. This is the flatworm that people have been absolutely slaying on for the last couple of years and that have been remarkably hard to get your hands on. And here is the newer, larger size of the flatworm in a 4.25 inch version. And it's bigger in every dimension. So you can see that it's a fatter bait. It's a longer bait. And you'd be surprised at how much of a difference that, half inch roughly makes. This is a much bigger bait than this one. So this is a cool color that I think is also perhaps a newer color or just one that I don't really have in any of their other baits. And they call it green pumpkin watermelon, but it's more of like a green pumpkin chartreuse. If you don't know, the Berkeley Maxent baits come in fairly natural colors for the most part. So uh, I'm excited for this one because in my waters, green pumpkin chartreuse absolutely slays. And that smells like Dookie. So picked up picked up just one pack of those. The other color that I had gotten earlier this season was that Gobiyashi color. And this is more of like a natural green with an iridescent blue with some purple and copper flake in there. So really love that. So those are two colors that I will definitely utilize this spring, especially on a drop shot. Around the spawn, that bait is almost too good if we're being honest. Matt's what did Justin says? I decided to go ballistic ordering underspins. LOL. Huh. Well, good for you, man. I've never gone ballistic in ordering underspins. I throw underspins not very frequently. I do use them for sure, but just not all that often, right? I showed you this underspin that I had the Stanley ribbit on. I do like this underspin. It's a weedless one. Although you guys know that I like the Flashy Swimmer and the Trocar Swim Blade quite a lot if I'm going for a weedless underspin. But otherwise, I like to kind of make my own by using custom attachable blades that either have a screw lock or a barbed plastic keeper. That's just a blade that can be added to the bottom inside a soft plastic. So I'll just turn like a swim jig or just a straight up standalone swim bait into an underspin by adding the blade underneath. That way I can save a little bit of money and then also have the versatility of removing that blade if it's not doing what I want it to. And I don't have to rig it on a different jig head, cut it off and tie on something else. So convenience and money is the idea there. Matt says that 4-inch looks like it would be perfect for a punch shot. Uh, yeah, I hear you there, and I don't disagree. I think it would be great for that technique. I think it would also be great on a free rig. I just think the 4.25 is going to it'll still get as many bites. I think I could be wrong about that, but it's going to cull some of the smaller fish that eat that 3.6. That 3.6 is a small bait, and that 4.25 is just a little bit meatier. It should get the attention um, of bigger bass when there are a lot of fish around. Usually big fish tend to go out of their way to claim the meal that is there when it's substantial enough for them to go after. You don't usually have to weed through all the small fish if you put a right sized bait in there. It doesn't have to be gigantic, but just enough for the biggest fish in the area to eat. And they will, more or less communicate with all the other fish in the area that is theirs and to move out of the way. Adam says, "Oh, off topic, but I went out and got some small boxes like you showed last stream. I'll be setting them up for specific techniques like Texas rig terminal tackle. Thanks for sharing the idea." Yeah, no problem, man. Glad to hear that you're going to utilize that because it's something that I've really taken advantage of for the last handful of seasons, and it has made maybe just the last 2 or 3 seasons, and it's made a huge difference for me in being able to you've only got a handful of different compartments in here. And a lot of times I will open this wide up. So I'll be able to put larger size hooks in here. Then I can put weights and, bobber stoppers and anything and everything you need in one of these small boxes. And it doesn't take up all that much room. So I can make these more technique specific or if I know I'm only going to be utilizing a couple of techniques or a couple specific baits, then I will throw less of each type of hook and weight in and only need to bring like one of these. So it definitely does make a difference. But if I know I'm going to be throwing a drop shot and a free rig and things like that, then I will actually kind of load these up with maybe a half a dozen of each of the weight sizes, because I usually go through a bunch of drop shot weights if I'm using uh, a drop shot around rocks. Then I'll probably use anywhere between 4 and 6 weights per time that I go out. All right, let's move on to the next baits because I don't have a lot more in this package, but we can open up the conversation a little bit wider after this. And I don't mind if we talk about top water, since I already opened up the Chapo and I've got a couple more top waters in here. But I almost forgot about this bait. This is a Max Scent bait that I don't yet have. And, there's a reason that I hadn't picked up this bait until now, and I might come to regret this, but this is the Max Scent Little General. So they make this in some colors that are different from the standard General. So that's one reason that I picked up this bait. This is a craw color that they call hot craw. So I do like the color pattern. Oh my gosh, did I perfectly open this so that I can't open it? Tastes kind of salty. Huh. So here is the Little General. She'll see that this hot craw color is like a dark green pumpkin back with a red belly and some black and gold flake in there. I definitely like this color pattern. Uh, but my thought has always been, well, why get the Little General when you can just use a full-size General and cut it down, right? Um, this isn't a great example because this is the 4-inch and it's a skinnier bait. But essentially, what you get out of this is like the same size as a 5 or perhaps a 6-inch General, and then it's cut in half. But the design of the bait is a little bit different. So you do get this ribbing on it, and then you get the flat bottom and this slightly tapered tail. So this thing is designed to be thrown on a Ned rig first and foremost, and it is going to be a bait that, because of its salt content, that it is going to fall over, right? So you could wacky rig this thing on a drop shot per se, or on a free rig, and it'll fall horizontally. At least that's my impression. This thing is not made to stand up, but it is still meant to be thrown on a Ned rig, just perhaps one that is fished a little bit quicker. So you're going to hop this thing. If you dead stick it, it's going to fall down. So I don't usually like Ned rig baits that do that and fall down immediately. Um, I prefer something with either a high buoyancy or a neutral buoyancy, so that it's going to have that slower fall, so that you can work that thing medium slow and still keep it, looking natural for the most part. So I'm curious to see what this bait is about and how it does. But the Max Scent baits were also on sale at Sportsman's Warehouse. Sportsman's Outfitters Warehouse. What was it? Sportsman's Outfitters, I think. Now let's check out what the Max Scent is running for right now. Getting my stinky fingers on my keyboard right now, which is not ideal, but Max Scent runs for $6.99 on average, but is on sale. The flatworms were $5.99, and the little generals were $4.99, and still are. So that's a deal and a half right there. That hot craw is actually the only color they have in stock right now of that little general, and they've got 3 of them. So by all means, if you want them, go for them. Whereas the flatworm, um, I don't know if the 4.25 is the only size that they have, but they've got the green pumpkin watermelon color I showed you. They've got a natural shad color, which is like a cool brown with some silver flake. You got smoke purple or smoke black purple, and then a like black shiner color. Those are all good colors for sure. So good prices on Max Scent baits. I think those are really the only ones that are in stock at the moment. But nevertheless, good prices. So picked those 2 soft plastics up, and then I got 3 more topwater walking baits. Okay. First one is a bait that I already have, but I only have one of them actually. And I don't know where my box of walking baits is. It might be upstairs, if I'm being honest. I was playing around with them the other night before I pulled the trigger on this purchase because I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't buying sizes and colors of baits that I already have. But this guy right here is the Teckle Kick Knocker in the junior size. They call it the pup. So the Kick Knocker pup, and this is the bluegill color. So um, how cute is that? On the back they say, catch, kiss, and release. Do not mistreat bass. That's funny. Um, Perhaps a little bit dramatic, but also kind of cool to see. So here is the Kick Knocker pup. And this is the bluegill color. I'll say that the paint job is a little bit subtle this go around on it. These stripes on it are not as pronounced as they ordinarily are. Doesn't matter really. I mean, what you get is kind of a white pearl belly with that orange on the throat, red gill plates, little chartreuse on the tail, and then you get that natural blue and green. So definitely a good color to have. You know, the only color that I have of this bait right now, the pup size, is like an exclusive color sold by the Hookup Tackle, which I think is called White Walker. It's like a wild like skeleton. I mean, it's a straight matte white color, but it's got like a crackle type of finish on it. So, a couple things that I really like about this bait. I thought I was going to like the Kick Knocker original size more than the pup, but once I actually got these out of the package and got to look at them, I actually think I like the pup a little bit better than I like the full size Kick Knocker. And the reason for that is that you get the downsized profile of like a Super Spook Junior, where you're getting about a 4-inch bait, half of an ounce. So this thing still casts well and has a great action, and it has the same type of sound profile, just a little bit higher pitch than in the full size Kick Knocker. You get some BBs up in the nose of the bait and then a knocker in the tail of the bait. So that's going to aid in casting and give it like a knocker sound. So you get kind of a dual pitch with this bait. Uh, Casts well, walks well. Yeah, kind of everything is right. But the main thing is that you get 3 treble hooks on a small profile walking bait. So for me, that is essential and is just going to add to the hookup ratio of that bait. So, you know, I really do like a Super Spook Junior and a lot of other downsized walking baits, but the vast majority of them have 2 hooks on them, not 3. And so the Teckle Kick Knocker Pup is one that does have 3. Another one is the Evergreen Shower Blows in the 105 size. Get 1, 2, 3 hooks on it. So size-wise, you see that these are fairly comparable. Kick Knocker Pup just a little bit shorter overall, but really high quality bait here. This thing retails at $20. So it is an expensive bait, and that's why I've only got like 3 of the full size, and now this is 2 that I have of the junior size. So I don't own a lot of the Kick Knockers, but I think it's a good bait, no doubt, and the one that I am excited to utilize more this season for sure. So Bruce says, do you add split rings or use loop knots? I typically use a loop knot, uh, more so than a split ring. I rarely use a split ring. I'll either tie direct and forget it, or I will use a loop knot if I just want a little bit wider of an action out of the bait. But some of these baits uh, are so easy walking on their own that they don't really need that added assistance for the sake of movement. So, yeah, I often tie a loop knot when throwing a topwater walking bait. But if I'm going to be switching out from bait to bait, then sometimes I'll use a snap. Otherwise, I'm tying direct. Matt says I just use a snap with my walking baits. Love how those yellow magic Havanas work. Yeah, I you've mentioned those baits before, and I've looked for them, but can't really seem to find them at many places, and I'm on the fence about them. Okay, now a walking bait that you guys do need to look into um, are these ones I'm going to pull out in 1 second. But let me just tell you the deal that you can get on the Kick Knocker right now if you pick this thing up from Sportsman's Outfitters, because it's like 20% off. So the thing retails at 20 bucks. They say 21.99. That is not true. I think most places, if you look, you're going to find it 19.99. So their price right now is showing 16.99. To me, that's a good price. So I picked one up. All right. Now, the last 2 baits in this package, just double check. Last 2 baits in here are evergreen baits. And I've talked about these just a couple of times. I'm not sure if any of you guys would remember this, but this is the Evergreen Justine or JT 115. Now, this is a hard plastic injected bait, but it is designed after a balsa wood topwater walking bait. And it mimics the action. This is a silent walking bait. Comes with a split ring on the front, but I take that off. And this is a 115 size walking bait. So this guy is a little bit bigger. You know, I think it's 9/16 of an ounce, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here. 11/16. So this is a 115 or 4.5-inch bait and 11/16. So almost 3/4 of an ounce. So for not having a weight transfer system and for being a fairly hollow bait, this thing has a lot of weight to it. So it's made to mimic the action of a balsa wood bait. And the shape of this thing is unique. You'll see that it has a flat top and flat bottom to it, which is different than the majority of walking baits that you're going to see on the market that have more of a traditional cigar shape that is rounded all the way around. So this thing does a really good job of not rolling over. And the hookup ratio, yeah, these stock hooks are really sharp. The hookup ratio on this thing is really good. So this is one of those under the radar baits that not a lot of people talk about, and you ought to look into it. Okay, silent walking bait. Not a lot of people throw silent walking baits, and maybe you ought to consider it. You'll notice that this bait does not have a cupped mouth, so it's not going to throw a lot of water. So this is about as subtle as a walking bait gets on the market. Does not throw water and does not rattle. This thing just has a really nice walk, super easy to walk, and it's stealthy. So bone is kind of a classic color pattern. Gotta have it. I have this color pattern in its baby brother, the one or the JT95 already, and I have a slightly different color in this 115 that is more of like a herring style color. So I decided to pick this guy up since I saw the bone in stock and on sale at that. So let me tell you what the price of this little guy was. They say it retails for $19.99. That is not true. I think it retails for more like 16 bucks or something like that. But this thing was on sale for $12.99. In my opinion, a very good price for what it is. Okay, JDM, super high quality, $12.99. And lastly, I did pick up another color of its baby brother in the JT95. So I told you that I have a bone color in the 95, and that is the only color. So when I first picked these up, I think I got them from the Hookup Tackle. Maybe I got them from Discount Tackle because they were on sale. I think I got them for like 14 bucks. But I got a bone color of the little guy and a like a herring style color of the 115, and I like them quite a lot. But this color here called Baby Gill is wicked. Check this thing out. What a nasty color that thing is. You get a ton of flash, good realism. You get that same rough finish with all that flake on the belly. I really like that. And so this guy is a downsized, it's 95 millimeters, 3 3/4 inches, and it is 3/8 of an ounce. So a little bit lighter weight, but definitely still um, the castable on traditional bait casting gear. You do not need to use a spinning rod to use this walking bait. This is like your Super Spook Junior uh, tackle kick knocker pup type of size, being right there at 95 millimeters. But you'll see in terms of profile, this thing is narrower. It's a little bit shorter, and it's definitely a lot stealthier. Kick knocker has that slightly cupped face, that dual rattle system, and the JT95 has neither. And for the same reason that I love that kick knocker pup, you get 1, 2, 3 hooks on this bad boy. So yeah, love, love, love this bait, and this color is even better than I thought it would be. Um, Fantastic, honestly. I am all about that. Look at all that color that it's throwing. So Evergreen JT95, and this thing was $11.99. So a dollar cheaper than its big brother at $12.99. You get the same profile, same shape with that that flat bottom, flat top. It's not going to roll. You get 3 treble hooks just in a downsized profile and weight. So very, very cool. So all of these baits that I picked up were on sale. Couple of Fritz sides, couple of packs of Max scent. a Berkeley Chapo 75, and then 3 JDM topwater walking baits. And I am jacked about that purchase. So not a giant purchase, but everything was on sale. And I got to say, totally worth it. So I might have said a stream or two ago that I did not have any plans to purchase much more gear at the beginning part of this season. But when I come across stuff like this, that the deals are almost just too good to pass up. I bought these baits on discount tackle when they were 10, 15% off and felt very good about the purchases. And then when I see them on sale for that much more, uh, I can't help it. I kind of have to get them. So um, keep that in mind. If you guys like high quality gear, you might want to hop on Sportsman's Outfitters right meow and pick some of those guys up. Okay. Megaforce Mark in the house. What's up, dude? How you doing tonight? Gators Adventures says I've started using the Norman speed clips and I like them. They're a little hard to get to use. Uh, hard to get to used to clipping, but they're strong. Yeah, I hear you. That's a big reason why I like the Spro Prime snaps as opposed to a clip. But to each his own. I think uh, clips and snaps are a great way to go. You'll notice some baits like the Evergreen um, One Bug, the OB 68, I believe it is. Yeah, their popper comes with a snap on the front, stock in the package. This is an awesome top water popper, but yeah, snaps and clips, good ideas. Mark says I'm late to fishing class. Just found out about the live. Yeah, you're a little bit late. I've been on for an hour and 2 minutes. I'm about to pour another bourbon real quick. Sorry, whiskey, not bourbon. I wonder if Debo knows about this distillery. He's got to, because it is in Iowa, and if I'm not mistaken, it's got to be one of the premier distilleries in Iowa. But it might be a little bit expensive for the average consumer. So I don't quite know if he drinks whiskey and knows or likes this stuff. But Cedar Ridge, and this is a single malt whiskey. Um, and it's tasty, honestly. They say it's rich and complex. It has taken me a couple pours to really agree with that statement because I'm a bourbon drinker, not a single malt whiskey guy. And so, at first, in my opinion, this was a relatively harsh drink. It does not have the traditional sweetness that you would expect and associate with a bourbon, because it's not a bourbon. So it's different, right? It feels a little bit more one dimensional, but it's a really, really good drink. A little bit spicier when it's not on ice. I'll say that. Gators Adventure says similar look to a perch pattern wise. I assume you're talking about this guy right here. Yeah. This is like a really cool hybrid between a bluegill and a perch. Reminds me more of a perch pattern like this guy right here. You get a little bit less flash out of this depending on the light, but this guy right here is the Megabass. Well, this is the Kanata jerkbait. It's their giant jerkbait, but this color is one that I have in a lot of their jerkbaits, and it's called GG Perch. And so, yeah, I really like this color pattern. You get a lot of flash out of it that you guys might not be able to see super well on camera right now, but you get some translucency in it, where you can see right through this bait, but you also get a lot of flash. So GG Perch from Megabass. And this almost reminds me more of that than a lot of traditional bluegill colors, but you do get a little bit of like pinkish on the bottom part here, a little bit more gold than orange, and then that blue hue on the cheek. Gorgeous, huh? Matt says, "Holy crap! Just went to look at my yellow magic, and it looks like that JT. Looks just like that JT. Wonder if they use the same mold." Dude, I couldn't tell you. I don't own a Yellow Magic Havana, so it's tough to say. Yeah, you tell me. I'll give you a slightly closer look up at it. You get that kind of flat back, and then you get that slightly rounded chin, but then you get a flat belly and that tapered tail. Yeah, I really like these baits, and that's where I would go first if I'm using a walking bait to cover water and find fish on a top water bite. Um, I would start with something like a kick knocker, for example. There are a number of other walking baits that I use and really like. I use the Lucky Craft Sammy, for example, especially in its newer size, the 105, because it's got 3 hooks and has a smaller profile. So the Sammy 105, I would use the Megabass Dog X Diamante. A little bit more subtle of a sound. Um, there are a handful of others that I would use as kind of go-tos that are a little bit more where you get both action and sound. So they're going to call fish from further away. And if I get 1 or 2 bites or I'm not quite getting bit, um, if I'm still wanting to cover water and find fish, then I will switch to something like this guy. Whereas if I find fish and I'm wanting to slow down, then I'll go to something like the Evergreen Shower Blows, or eventually just straight up to a popper, you know. So yeah, a walking bait is a great way to cover water, um, and call big fish up. Of course, I do still use like a whopper plopper from time to time, depending on where I'm fishing, especially over riprap. Uh, but a walking bait is an awesome way to cover water, generally speaking, especially over the top of grass. Um, Michael Romero in the house. They have some awesome colors. That bluegill color is my favorite. Are you talking about Tekla or are you talking about Evergreen? Gator's Adventure says looks like root beer. Um, I don't know that it looks like root beer, does it? Perhaps. Daniel says I think the tail tapers more on the Havana. Looking at it on the hookup. Um, yeah, definitely could. But again, I'm not all that familiar with the Yellow Magic Havana, and I just hooked myself. Matt says it looks identical, body shape wise and profile. Looks a little thicker. The JT might just be the camera, but from the side it looks pretty spot on with the Havana. Interesting. Interesting. All right. So cool. I am done with my show and tell when it comes to the unboxing. Uh, I do have 2 more baits upstairs that I made this week. More of those skinny flat sides, like I showed you last week. I'm hoping to test them out tomorrow and see how they run. I showed you guys this last week that I think runs well and I'm excited about, as well as this one that does not run well and that I take as a learning experience. So, a couple things that I took away from this guy were the way that I made that line tie, and the fact that it is a little bit twisted. It looks like it's tuned fine, like it's pointed straight, but it's actually torqued, it's twisted. And then the line tie is a little bit too far above the bill itself. So this thing, as I start to pull it, it rolls on its side and it doesn't actually dive and start doing what it needs to. I think it's also weighted incorrectly. And so it's not quite ideal. I've only got a weight behind this front hook hanger. And this guy is a little bit more spot on. This line tie is straight and it's just above the bill. The bill angle is a little bit better. And yeah, this bait was awesome. And I'm a fan of it for sure. So I've got two more color patterns that I have made. One is curing at the moment. The other one is done. It's another craw pattern. And I'm actually thinking about making a third craw pattern. But I will show you guys the other homemade flat sides that I've got perhaps tomorrow or the day after. I think I'll probably come back on tomorrow night, but we'll see about that. Um, you guys tell me what else you want to talk about tonight, and we'll kind of steer this conversation in whatever direction you guys want to take it right now. Mark says, I got the fishing fever. It's trout season, and I've been to the river a lot. Smashed a big catfish, but the weather is back to rain and snow. Well, dang. Yeah, I think we're supposed to get some snow here in Colorado in the next week, which I'm not super jazzed about. I wouldn't mind going skiing once more before the end of the season because I haven't been in like a month, but I am ready for fishing weather, quite frankly. And so, yeah, I hear you. It is also trout season here. I mean, it's trout season really year round, except the dead of the summer. But they're starting to stock trout in a lot of lakes and ponds here in the Denver metro area. So this is really that time of year where you can go and catch stalker trout and throw stock trout pattern swim baits to target bass in that cold water and that early pre-spawn. And that is what I do intend to do here in the next week or two. So for sure. I hear you, man. Matt says, what epoxy are you using for the clear coat, Tyler? Well, I've got two different types of epoxy. Right now, I'm really just using like a polyurethane more than anything, and just dipping it 2 to 4 times. So it takes like a couple days to actually cure the bait. But I do have a couple of other two-part epoxies that I'm considering using. I really like the idea of being able to dip a bait and let it hang and drip, um, as opposed to like paint the bait with the epoxy. But I'm still new to this, right? And so I've got a couple of different options, and so far I've just been using the polyurethane for the most part. Michael Romero, cheers to you too, man. JT95 bluegill is an awesome color pattern. So is the bone pattern. I hear you, and I agree, man. That is why I pulled the trigger on these baits, because I only had the bone in the smaller size, and I'm just like most people. I think bone is an excellent color for a topwater walking bait. It's kind of one that you can't go wrong with. Does really well in a wide variety of weather and water conditions. So, gotta have a bone walking bait, but When you're fishing around ponds and smaller bodies of water where bluegill are prevalent, and you're fishing in a place like Colorado where we get a lot of sun, a lot of high sun conditions, then having a metallic bluegill pattern like this guy was one that I felt like I wanted and needed to have. But that's just me. Ray, Kid Iraq in the house. What up, dude? Tyler, you popped in my head today. Spring break for my son. So kayak, boat, shore fishing, sometimes in the same day since last week. Well, sweet, man. That sounds awesome. Uh, Glad to hear that you guys are going fishing on your kid's spring break. I am hopeful that over the course of the next 10 to 15 years, that I will be able to properly influence my children so that they are passionate about fishing, right? I've talked about this before, but, um, I have an unhealthy addiction to fishing. And I just hope that they see it more the way I do than the way my wife does, and can see it as an escape and a fun hobby to explore and learn and be out in the outdoors and wilderness. Um, and so, yeah, good for you that your kid is into fishing and that you guys have been out doing a fair amount of fishing during spring break. That sounds awesome. Daniel says there was an old school lure that I used for rainbow trout called a super duper that was fire when I was a kid. Well, what the heck was a super duper, man? Tell us, profile wise, weight wise, what was the super duper? Because I actually don't know that bait. I think we've talked about my rainbow trout baits before, but do I have them sitting here or not? Wow, I do. I do. So, guys, not just rainbow trout, but especially brown trout, love eating artificial hard baits. Rainbow trout prefer soft plastics, in my opinion, just a little bit more than browns do. But I will throw a wide variety of hard baits at them. And I'll tell you right now that if you don't have it, you absolutely need to pick this bait up. I'll show you a couple of color patterns here. This bait is called the Dynamic Lures HD Trout. Okay. And they make this in a ton of different colors. It's a fantastic, tiny little jerk bait that is approximately 55 millimeters. This is like 1/10 of an ounce. It's a lightweight jerk bait, super small little guy, but it's got super sticky, sharp hooks on it. Uh, and it's got a remarkable action. This is more of like a countdown style jerk bait. So it's a jerkbait crankbait hybrid. Does really well in current, but meant to be fished on a straight retrieve with some occasional jerks and pops of the rod. And it slays trout. It's made Dynamic Lures is a Colorado-based company, and a really, really good bait is that HD trout. They also make a couple of other baits. The J Spec trout is a little bit larger of a bait, definitely worth having, um, but you gotta have that one, the HD trout. I also throw some other small jerk baits like the Lucky Craft Pointer 65. This is suspending jerk bait that's going to go in that 2 to 4 feet of water. I throw the, Yozuri pins minnow in the floating and the suspending models. mostly in the floating, but I also really like the Rapala X Wrap in its smaller sizes. So I want to say that this is like the X Wrap 6. Not 100% sure on that. And then I throw the Rebel Countdown Minnow, the Rapala Original Floater. This is a balsa jerkbait crankbait combo that is a floater. And I also throw the Rapala Husky Jerk a fair amount. You know, not only do they make it in some colors that appeal to bass and bluegill, but they make it in some trout type of patterns that do really well also. So I throw a lot of jerk baits and micro crankbaits for trout. You go even smaller. The X Wrap I think comes in this. This is like a size 4. And same with the Yozuri Pins Minnow. This is maybe like a 1/16 ounce instead of a 1/8. A bait that I did not get a chance to really put to use much last year is this Megabass Humpback, um, the Great Hunting series Humpback jerkbait. I also will throw some smaller lipless crankbaits. So the Rip and Wrap in the tiny size, the Yozuri Rattle and Vibe in its smallest size. Same with the Bill Lewis Tiny Trap. Those are 3 lipless crankbaits that I really like. And then as we get a little bit warmer with the water conditions, then I will start utilizing one is like a this is more of a multi-species bait than a trout bait for me, but the Bitsy Minnow. This is a Strike King tiny crankbait. The square bill actually has a small rattle to it and is an absolute killer when it comes to multi-species fishing. But top water time of the year, it is hard to beat the Rebel. What do they call it? It's the Crick Hopper. Okay. I carry this thing in like a lot of different colors, and I like it a lot. So, yeah, it is that time of year for me too. Sorry that I just got behind on comments. Daniel says there was an old school. Okay, super duper. Right. I want to know about that. Matt says, might want to try some True Coat epoxy my friend uses and really likes it. He says it's way easier to put on and it has a reasonable apply time and it looks great after. It's very smooth. Okay, I'll definitely keep that in mind. Send me a message on Instagram so I don't have to track through these comments after the fact. True Coat epoxy. I don't think that's the one that I have, but then again, I don't really know. I have the one that I bought from Hobby Lobby or Michael's from an old video of Ben Milliken's that I watched. Uh, it's an epoxy clear coat that he uses, so I don't know. I forget what it's called. Ray says last 2 days I got my first bass skipping a jig. Sweet. I'm still a skip noob, but it's epic when you can squeeze it under a float and a bass nails it. Absolutely, dude. Um, I am by no means a skipping master either, but you're absolutely right. There is, I don't want to say there's no greater feeling, but it feels so good when you can skip a bait exactly where you want it to go and it makes it to where it's going, drops down, and you get bit immediately. Like it was just meant to be. You make that skip, it lands, drops down, and yoink. Um, you see those videos on social media, like Noah from Kicking Their Bass TV. That dude is a pro skipper. He's got tons of videos, like short videos of him making perfect skips with like a frog and other baits like that, where he just is he'll make a cast and catch a fish all in less than 10 seconds. The way that he just skips it in there, sets the hook, and drags that thing in. And super impressive, but fun when that kind of thing happens, no doubt. Michael says HD Trout just got it in the Halo Red today. LOL. Yeah, well, that's an absolutely epic bait. I don't know that I have it in the Halo Red. Do I? I don't know. But I'll tell you that my absolute favorite color, um, and I have a lot of colors, right? My favorite color is this guy right here, which I think is just called brown trout. I always have a couple of these in stock, um, because worst case scenario, I lose one, gotta have a backup. Um, that color just day in and day out gets bit really, really well for me, and yeah, that bait has been the most fish catchingest hard bait for trout when it comes to artificial lures that I've had by a long shot over the last handful of years. And I'm not going to stop throwing it. Now, I still prefer to fly fish when I'm chasing trout. I don't default to artificial lures. I go to flies and I use my fly fishing setups. I like to wade and just kind of be one with nature and do the old fashioned snobby fly fishing deal. That's how I was raised, and that still runs deep in me and will be with me forever. But in certain bodies of water, especially where there are stock trout in still bodies of water, or if I'm fly fishing and like the bite completely dies out, and I've got a specific pool or run of water that has lighter current or is deeper in nature, then I will tie on um, a hard bait onto a spinning rod, an ultralight setup, and I will chase those trout. But I rarely use a float and a soft plastic to chase trout. Uh, Unless I'm in a lake or a pond and like fishing with my kids, for example, or with somebody who doesn't have much of any experience in catching fish, or we're multi-species fishing, that kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. Adam says trying to decide on a rod: Dobbins Fury 705 CB or Dobbins Caden 703 CB. Um, Crankbaits and top water. Like to possibly try jerkbaits as well. Yeah, I have a similar setup. It's my Daiwa to Tula 7 foot medium power regular action. That is it's a crankbait slash light top water rod, but it also doubles as a jerkbait rod. So it is also a 7 foot rod, a little bit longer than I prefer for a jerkbait rod. Like I specifically have a 7.9 medium, um, and it could be a fast action uh, that is made for jerkbait fishing specifically, and that's what I use for jerking. But sometimes I will go ahead and tie on a jerkbait onto my crankbait setup if I've got the right conditions or a steep enough bank or I'm fishing from a dock what have you. And I will use that crankbait setup as a jerkbait rod as well. So, uh, by all means, you certainly can do that. And it's tough to say whether the 705 CB versus the 703. I mean, obviously the 703 is going to be more limber and a little bit better for jerk baits, but 705 is probably going to be the most well-rounded. Uh, so it depends on like if it's a really technique specific rod for you. If you want the 703, then you ought to plan to throw lighter crankbaits and jerk baits for the most part. Whereas if you got the 705 CB, you can kind of do a little bit of everything with it. I don't know what the lure weight ratings are on those rods, but yeah, that would be my main takeaway is that a 3 power rod is probably going to be a little bit light for most applications. I don't mean that literally. I just mean that it's not going to handle as wide of a variety of applications as a 5 power would. So if we're talking about a 7 foot long rod, but a 5 power versus a 3, the 5 is going to do more for you than the 3 is. And I didn't even read that right. Sorry, Caden 735 CV. I don't know. But 7'3", likewise, is going to be more of a crankbait specific rod. At that point, it's probably a little too long to be using uh, as a jerkbait slash topwater rod. If you want something that you're going to be using for jerkbaits potentially, but doubling as crankbaits and topwater, probably going to want to go with a 7 foot, not a 7'3". Okay. Michael says you still need to try the Daiwa Dr. Minnow. I probably do, and I don't know about that. Oh, I'm behind on the comments. I'm sorry, guys. Matt says, I use those great hunting jerk baits for really heavy current. They seem to work pretty well in them. Okay, good to know. And Ray says, I don't know how much Dobbins are, but I've been using a medium moderate carbon light for the last 2 years for those baits and absolutely love it. Also use the 6 Sense ESP. Well, more so than the make and model, I think the length and the power and action are really what we're looking for right now, Ray. Um, and that is awesome that your kid is still missing skin from his thumbs, still telling the story. How sweet is that? Glad to hear it, man. Daniel says, I didn't know you could still get the super duper, but Discount Tackle hasn't. They're considered a spoon, but they're a flat metal in a U shape that spins in the water. What? Let me look this up real quick. All right. Discount Tackle has them? Why haven't I seen them before? They're a Lure Jensen bait. Come on, load for me, baby. What the heck is that? Looks like a set of nail clippers. What? Doesn't look so super duper to me. A what? That's definitely a spoon, but not even spoon shaped. Wow. That looks like a homemade lure. It looks like a set of nail clippers. That's hysterical. Dude, I don't even know what to say about that. Um, Dave Jolly just grabbed some JT 115s from Sportsman's Outfitters. Appreciate the tip on the sale, sir. Well, no problem, man. glad that you could take advantage of the sale. Yeah, that I need to thank Eliza for the heads up because honestly, I don't keep tabs on every website out there. And I don't shop at Sportsman's Outfitters very frequently. I maybe have made a couple of purchases there ever, honestly. So it's not a website that I check regularly. But she mentioned last week that they had some sweet deals going on. And so I just made a mental note of that and then looked at it later. And as I was browsing around, I realized, wow, some of these baits are actually a really good deal. So I kind of browsed through like everything that they have, probably spent an hour on there and realized that there was a handful of things that I actually wanted. And it was enough for me to pull the trigger on. So I don't know what I spent on this, maybe $80 or so. That tends to be kind of my average purchase price on a transaction. I'll either buy a bunch of cheaper stuff or I'll buy a handful of more expensive lures. And spoiler alert, I have another package coming that might be here tomorrow. So keep an eye out. I could go live tomorrow night. Uh, this package is not from Sportsman's Outfitters, but from another place that has kind of a similar name. And I found some really cool deals. Like I'm almost tempted to not tell you guys the name of the place that I got them from because I might buy more of them and put them up for sale on eBay to help offset the cost of the purchase itself because they have some baits that are discontinued and that are on sale on top of that. So these are baits that you can sell on the secondary market on eBay for like twice the retail price. And right now they're on sale for like half of what they normally cost. And the only hint that I'll give you is that the Hookup Tackle recently posted a video with like I think it was their Sunday video this past week with some baits that are back in stock. Matt might know this, but Ben from the Hookup mentioned that they finally got their hands back on some of these baits, and he wishes that this company would bring back a specific size of this series of bait that no longer exists, but that eventually they might be able to convince this company to remake it or re-release it or in a small batch or what have you. Um, I found that bait in stock at one store, and I purchased a handful of them and a couple more of some other baits. So I'm excited for those to come, and hopefully they'll be here tomorrow. So look out for that video. I'm going to be unboxing those definitely in the next 2 days. Could be tomorrow night though. Okay. That says the Akuma EVX cranking rod is a great one. It can be used for all of those in a reasonable price with great components and blank. Sweet. Dennis says 703 is softer for bottom contact and feeling sensitive baits. Yep. I would agree. The 5 power is probably more well rounded. Michael says, I like to go fly fishing as well. I got into BFS the last few years. Have you tried it out? No, I have not. That is on my radar. Probably something I will get into in the next couple of years. But in my opinion, kind of bridges that gap. At least at this point in time, I still see it interchangeable with throwing a spinning rod. I mean, sure, I prefer to use a bait caster when I can. So it's possible that I will be convinced when I get into BFS that, like, oh, this is a lot more fun than throwing a spinning rod. But for now, I can do everything on a spinning rod that I would do with a BFS rod. There's there's no real reason for me to have it. Uh, it seems a little bit not redundant, but just unnecessary, and that's my opinion. I might change my mind on that entirely moving forward. I don't know about that. Daniel says 703, 1/4 to 3/4 ounces. Really? I'm kind of surprised about that. The 735 is a flipping and pitching rod? No. Really? So, Adam, if we're talking about the 703 versus the 735, and you want it for a cranking and potentially jerkbait slash topwater rod, you need to get that 703. I mean, 1,000%. If you want to get something that's rated at a 1/4 ounce, maybe even an eighth of an ounce, up to like a half or a 3/4. If it's a flipping and pitching rod, there is no way you're going to like it as a crankbait rod. That thing is not going to have the parabolic bend. It's not going to load up when you're throwing lightweight lures. It is not the right setup. Just straight up. Um, so if what Daniel's saying is correct, do not get the 735 for that reason. Okay. Now I'm not a Dobbins guy, so I can't say straight up, but uh, it sounds like if a 3 power rod from Dobbins is rated a 1/4 ounce to 3/4, that's what you need for what you were talking about technique wise. Okay. Ray says, I used a short, cheap Bass Pro Evergreen rod for jerk baits and absolutely killed it in January and February. It's nothing special. Medium heavy, fast. Didn't lose any though. Well, sweet, man. I use a medium power more than I do a medium heavy for jerk baits, but all the power to you. You know, I would use this guy on a medium heavy because this is a big and heavy jerk bait. But I I throw a medium power fast action for a jerk bait most of the time. I want it to be a fast action so I have the responsiveness, but then a medium power so that it will actually load all the way up and have that parabolic bend that you want with treble hook baits like that and like you'd have with a crankbait. But when throwing exclusively crankbaits, I like more of a moderate or moderate fast action to the bait. I don't want to necessarily pull the hooks out of the fish's mouth when they eat it. You know, it's more of a sweep set. Whereas with the jerk bait, they're going to hit the bait more than chase and eat the bait. So with the crankbait, I find that I'm pulling into the fish more. With a jerk bait, I find that I'm actually jerking and setting the hook out of reaction. And I want a little bit more um, the more of a fast action out of the rod to be able to make up for me reacting quickly to that bite, if that makes sense. Mark says, "What do you think about the trout magnet bait? I've got some to try for trout season in the lakes. I think it's a killer. Um, it's almost too good. Okay, now that sounds silly to say, but you know, a few years ago, it was like my go-to bait for multi-species fishing. If I was targeting bluegill, crappie, trout, all in the same body of water, that's what I would go to. It is a small bait, you know, an inch and a half long, soft plastic with a split tail, and made to go on a super lightweight jig head. The trout magnet jig head is like 1/64 ounce. Comes with like a size 6 hook on it, something like that. And there's something about that bait where it just sits horizontal in the water, has just a really subtle action, made to sit under a float. They make a float for that bait. That's just a foam float with like a peg in it. Easy to slide up and down your line to change the length of your leader, but that bait is deadly. Okay, it doesn't come scented, so I do add scent to it if I'm ever using the trout magnet, and I use it for my kids, right? Uh, the cool thing about it is it comes in a bunch of different colors, so my kids love being able to choose the jig head, choose the plastic color, and it's easy to use, right? The float adds a little bit of weight to make that thing more castable, and it controls the depth at which that thing is sitting below the surface. So it is a like fishing for dummies type of bait, the trout magnet. It's almost too easy and too good. I don't even know what to say about it. But if you're looking to step up from there ever so slightly, go to something like the mule fishing donkey tail junior or the horse fly. Okay. These are very similar baits to what you get in the trout magnet, but a different profile. And these are made from like an Elastec type of plastic. So this is a paddle tail swim bait, and this is a horsefly. So a little bit wider tail, and these are super stretchy, really good baits. You can buy these on Discount Tackle, and they're made by a really good guy who is a brand ambassador for Discount Tackle. He's on Instagram. His name's Ethan. Um, Goes by Online Outdoorsman on YouTube and Instagram. Really good guy. So, yeah, that is my short and long on the trout magnet. Matt says, reminded me of a magnet. LOL. Very interesting. I wonder what it looks like in the water. Rapala sells one too. I don't know what exactly you're talking about. Uh, Got my hookup tackle order today, says Matt. I got some of those bottom up baits. Stop calling them bottom baits. You said that last stream and it confused me, but they're called bottom up. Bottom up. You got that Reezy crank, a Beeble spinner. First impression is they're pretty nice. You're going to test the spinner tomorrow. Okay. Well, it's another one of those JDM brands that's a little bit lesser known. I don't know much about it, and they seem expensive but high quality. It's hard to tell whether the hookup is repping them, really trying to sell them because it's new to them and they went all in, or because it's new and they like the concept, or because they're like literally all about it and they've been waiting to get them in. I don't know about that, but I don't have any of those baits, and I'll be curious to hear what you have to say about them. Daniel says, Adam, the 734 is what you need, really. Not the 703 or the 735. The 734 is what you need. Dobbins runs a little light, says Daniel. Medium heavy is a 4 power. Heavy, wait. 3 is a medium heavy, 4 is a heavy, 5 is a mag heavy. Oh, that's right. I have the 795 for my swim bait rod. It's a medium heavy, but it's technically a 7'9" swim bait rod. Interesting. They make a 705 CB that is a crankbait rod. It's not as heavy as the 735. Hmm. It's your autocorrect saying bottom baits, bottom up baits. That's all good, man. 705 CB was the one that Adam was considering. He mostly plans on crankbaits and topwaters. Jerkbait is just a side note. See, that's what I do with my crankbait rod. Um, I use it for crankbaits and for topwater walking baits. Although I tend to use my jerkbait rod as a topwater rod more often than I use my crankbait rod for a topwater rod. And I didn't necessarily expect that. I kind of had the same intentions as you in using my crankbait rod as a topwater because that's the way it's labeled and advertised is to be both of those. But I find that 7 or 6'9", 6'10", I don't know what it is, does better at working top waters just like you would a jerk bait, where I'm actually working the rod down better than a 7-footer. So that's just me. Matt says, check out their videos on YouTube. They've been around for a minute, and the baits have been in store for a while. Ichiban has had them for a minute. Didn't know that. Mark says, garlic for the scent on the trout magnet. What are your thoughts? I think that works just fine. I mix up my scents, especially when it comes to Procure. You know, I do use garlic. I do use Procure uh, Trophy Bass scent. I use a couple of other ones as well. I don't think it quite matters. Garlic works just fine, dude. Nothing wrong with that. Will Perriman just saw him streaming. Well, sweet, man. Why don't you guys think of something to ask while I quickly pee, and I'll be back in like, yeah, 30 seconds. All right. But Will Perriman in the house. I'll show you one more time what I just picked up and unboxed. So you don't have to rewatch the entire video. And yeah, I'm sitting here while I'm peeing into a cup. You know, if Ron Holly were here, he'd be proud. Oh no. Come on, don't fill it up. Wow. Dangerous. Dangerous. Man. Look at this bait that I just saw as I was walking back from peeing. Do you guys remember when I unboxed this bait right here? This is the Weston Hypo Tees in the 10-inch. This would be an awesome stalker trout bait right here. Holy crap. This is like a 10-inch mag draft. But it doesn't have a belly slit. So needs to be rigged on a stinger hook for sure. But wow. Not only does it look good, but I think it would have great action. And be an awesome stock trout imitator. That's one that I need to remember to bring out in the next couple of weeks as I go fishing where there are stalker trout around. Mark says, Debo doesn't pee in a cup, but I bet Dizzle does. Ow. Just got stuck by another one of these Megabass jerk baits. This is that Kanata again with 5 or 6 baits hanging under it. Sitting at my feet. Yow. That thing just stuck into my foot. Um, Matt says, what does that weigh? 4 ounces. So the Weston Hypo Tees, 10 inches, 4 ounces. Pretty sweet bait here. You know, theoretically you could cut out a belly slit and throw it on. I mean, you need to have at least a 12-aught hook on here, if not bigger, if you were throwing it weedless. But really, they make a stinger hook made for these baits, and you know, it's probably like a 2-aught hook that is weighted. And that's the way to go for that bait. I don't know where those are right now, but that is a sweet bait. You know, they don't make a Megabass Mag Draft 8-inch or 10-inch freestyle. And unfortunately, this Weston bait, they only make in a 6-inch and a 10-inch. They don't make an 8. So I would love it if there was an 8-inch freestyle type of bait like this, especially that came 2 to a pack instead of 1, and that had a belly slot already built in. That would be kind of the ultimate if you could throw a 10-aught owner beast hook on it. But yeah, that's a bait that I want to try at some point. But I picked up last season and have not tried it yet. So 4 ounces is the short answer. Matt says you could probably use the 14-aught BKK Titan hook. I'm sure you could. Honestly, it's a giant bait, and these fins are far enough back to where you literally have like 4 inches of bait there. You have a lot of clearance, but again, you'd have to cut out a belly slot. So, Will, no, I haven't had a lot of success with baits over 3 ounces because I do not have a dedicated rod for them. It doesn't mean that you can't, right? Uh, but I have not committed to baits well over 3 ounces just yet because I don't have a dedicated setup to it. So, you know, eventually I will, but right now it's like my sweet spot is for bigger swim baits, usually in that like 1.5 to 3 ounce range. Um, and so my Dobbins Fury 795 handles that really well. But eventually, I definitely will step up. You know, that there's a reason that I haven't fished this bait either. There's 2 others that I have that are in that category that I have not fished. Uh, One is the Megabass Mag Slow in the 9-inch, and this is a 3.25-inch bait, so I could easily throw this thing. This is like a Mag Draft type of bait, but it's the Mag Slow, and has a little bit more tail action, swims at slower speeds than the Mag Draft does. Uh, and then the other bait, which does have a belly slot, is the Optimum Baits Papa Boom Boom. So this is actually made to be thrown on a 12-aught owner beast, and this is an 8-inch bait, hand poured, absolutely giant hunk of plastic, and it also is 3.2 ounces. It feels a little bit heavier in the hand than that Weston bait, but I guess it's approximately the same. So this is a bait that you get that conjunction of a head wag with a tail kick, and it seems like it's built even better than the 6-inch. So this is one that I've been wanting to try, but just don't quite have the setup, the time. When you add the weight of the jig head or the weedless hook that's going to go on a bait that's already 3.2 ounces, it adds up quick. So, I don't feel like my Fury 795 is going to handle this bait all that well, and that's why I haven't used it just yet. So, it's there sitting on the hook or on the peg, but I don't have it. Matt says, I bet that Papa Boom Boom would get smashed fishing deep. I agree. There are certainly places that I assume it would do really well, but I just haven't used it yet, and I'm slowly but surely building my arsenal of baits kind of in that category, but have not used them all just yet. I suppose you could also throw into that category like the Savage Gear 8-inch pulse tail. This is the 8-inch pulse tail trout versus the 6-inch pulse tail trout, which are pretty significant in difference of size and weight. So the 8-inch is the one that I made a video on Instagram about, I don't know, a year ago or so, showing the action of this thing. It looks really, really natural in the water. And so does the 6-inch. It's just a much more bite-sized profile. And so I feel like more fish are going to eat this thing. It's a lot easier to throw. This thing's probably just an ounce and a half, and this thing's like 3.5. But so you're not going to be able to make long bomb casts with that 8-inch, but it is still definitely fishable and not like crazy oversized. Kind of falls into that category of like the larger line through bluegills that they make compared with like the smaller ones. So this is like the 6-inch. Here's the 5-inch, and then the 4-inch. Yo, Will, did you ever throw this Huddleston shad? I know that I sent you one of these guys in like that hologram shad color, maybe a couple of other baits at the time, but did you ever throw this bait? Because this is one that's been on my mind that I probably ought to be throwing, but never really got around to using. Did you ever throw it? Have you had success on it yet, or no? Because I know you sent me some baits as well, and some of which I've had success on, some of which I haven't even used. Matt says, Tyler, if you ever wanted a budget swim bait rod to throw, the soft plastics, the Daiwa DXSB is a great rod in the heavy, extra heavy. They feel like great rods. I've used the extra heavy so far. Still haven't used the heavy yet, but great rod so far. So yeah, that was a rod that was on my radar when I bought the I forget what it's even called, the Daiwa DX, not the swim bait rod, but just the regular DX. I was looking into that rod around the holidays, and I think they might have sold out by the time that I pulled the trigger. So one was the Dobbins Fury 806 swim bait rod, and then the other was that Daiwa DX SB rod. That so I either didn't have the opportunity to pull the trigger, or I just opted for that standard version that was so cheap. Retails for $50 was like 35 or $38, something like that. Crazy good deal. Couldn't help it. Matt says, I used that huddle shad in the shad spawn, burning it over grass. Worked pretty well, but haven't used it recently. Okay. And Will says, I still have it, but I haven't had a chance yet. Pulled it out this past week, and I joined the fishing club this year so I could use my gear more and fish more. Well, right on. Okay. No, I was asking more just because I want feedback on the bait because I've got a couple of them, as opposed to checking up to see if you used the baits that I sent you. I don't care. That's not a big deal to me. It's just more like I've got some of these and realize I haven't used them. That color that I sent you was the one that I thought was the coolest, or that I thought would get bit the best, but I still haven't used those baits. I picked them up like 2 years ago. So Matt says, I feel the blank is a little bit more rigid in the Daiwa than the Fury rods, but still have a great bend to them. Austin Neary swears by them. I don't even know who that is. Is the reason I got one. Ended up being really nice for the price. Okay. Adam says, were you thinking of the Fury series or the Champion? I think he and Daniel are still talking about rods. Adam is really looking at getting a new rod. And by all means, go for it, dude. I hope you can make a decision here. I'm not trying to rush your decision, but I hope Daniel is being useful to you. And guys, we've been in here for 2 hours and almost 7 minutes. So, do you guys have any other questions, any last minute things that you want to talk about? I'll let you know that I am going to be in here again, hopefully tomorrow night. But if not tomorrow, then definitely on Saturday. So keep your eyes peeled, about this same time tomorrow night. Both of the next 2 nights at about 9 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Check your clocks. Make sure you've got your notifications turned on because I've got another package. Here's a little spoiler alert. Whoosh. Don't know if you could see that, but it's not that bait, but it is that lure manufacturer. And I've got some cool stuff to open, and I'm excited about it. It's one manufacturer and a handful of different baits, a couple different colors of each from a retailer that I really don't shop at. So I will open them for you. Um, and then we might all be racing to pick up the last ones before they're sold out. So, it is what it is. You know what, Will? Don't be sorry that you're late. I'll give you one more little show so you don't have to rewatch this entire video. Here is what I picked up in this order. So I picked up two of the Berkeley Fritz side 5 biggin. So just for a size comparison, I don't have the 5 regular. Here's the 5 junior. Here's the 5 biggin. I looked at all these baits. The 5 biggin is the same body size as the Fritz side 9, but in has the bill to where it dives to a maximum depth of 5 feet. So I picked up 2 of the 5 biggins in the HD craw colors, HD green craw, HD brown craw, that I think are going to be awesome baits to have. And they were on sale, like $8.49, something like that. I picked up 2 packs of the Berkeley Max Scent baits. I don't even know where I put them all. So, one, I got a pack of the flatworms in the newer size. This is the 4.25 in a green pumpkin watermelon color. And then I got a pack of the Little General in the hot craw color. I don't really know what to think of the Little General, but I'm excited to try those. Those were on sale too for like $5.99 and $4.99. I think the Little General was $4.99. So a little bit too hard to pass up. And then I picked up, I'm probably skipping one or two things, but I picked up 3 walking baits. The Teckle Kick Knocker Pup in the bluegill color. This reminds me a lot of the Lucky Craft BE Gill color. I really like this bait because it is like a Super Spook Junior size, but with 3 treble hooks on it. Has that knocker, but also has some BBs up in the head of the bait. Kick Knocker Pup is a bait that I'm all about. Has that scooped nose. It walks really well, but it makes a commotion. Spits a little bit of water too. And then I picked up 2 super subtle walking baits from Evergreen. And these are the JT 115 in the bone color and the JT 95 in the baby bluegill color, both of which are really high quality but silent. All that you're hearing is the split rings. These are silent walking baits that have flat bottoms, flat backs, are really designed to imitate the action and the sound or lack thereof of a balsa wood topwater walking bait. So, Teckle, Evergreen, Berkeley. I also picked up a Berkeley Chopo 75 in the HD bluegill color. I just threw that in my box already, and so sorry about it, but pretty sweet looking this little guy. I didn't already have any of the Chopo 75, and everything there was on sale and still is from Sportsman's Outfitters. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, feel free to go check it out because it's all on sale and a good deal. So obviously that's why I pulled the trigger on any and all of that stuff. Great colors, great baits, new sizes to me for some of that stuff, and could not help it. So it is what it is, right? I think I paid like $15.99 or $16.99 for this Teckle, $12.99 for the larger size of the Evergreen, $11.99 for the little guy, $8.99 for both of the Berkeleys, and then like I said, $5.99 and $4.99 for the Max Scent baits. So yeah, my pleasure, Will. I don't have any of the 5 regular, but the 5 biggin I'm pretty excited about considering its large body size. But I'm also excited about the 5 junior because it's so small. I think it's going to make a really good multi-species bait for catching bluegill, small bass, crappie, etc. Um, in shallow ponds. So this will be a bait that I tie on somewhat frequently moving forward. But when going after bass in shallow water, I think this 5 biggin is going to be awesome, especially when they're targeting crawfish. So appreciate the kind words there, Will. Daniel says I got a Weston spot on top water in a box. A Weston spot? I don't know what that is. A spot on top walker in a box a while back. I don't even know that bait, man. Will, I also love the Tiny OG. Dude, that's a great bait. Um, Now I haven't fished it a lot just yet, but I really love the profile of it. You know, like I just love how narrow that thing is, to the point where I've been trying to replicate and make my own versions of it. Like this is homemade. These are the actual tiny OGs, and I've been trying to make a similar profile of my own. Now that's in a color pattern that is trying to replicate this firecraw from the evergreen, uh the Flat Force 4, but I'm currently making a couple more of these guys right now, the homemade balsas. And weight wise, they come in about the same. These guys are like 3/16 of an ounce, something like that. I'm weighting them in front and behind that front hook hanger, and so far so good. Yo. So I'm curious about this firecraw color, and I've also made it black and blue. And I currently have a chartreuse black bag that's curing upstairs. I'm gonna make maybe more of like a Rayburn red. But yeah, no, I mean this is all by hand. It's not all that impressive, but I appreciate the kind words. Well, I this is literally I don't have an airbrush, so I'm using nail polish and and things like that to create these color patterns. So it's not ideal, but I appreciate the kind words. Yeah. Not hard as nails, but Sally Hansen. I do use a lot of Sally Hansen. So sometime I'll show you guys the nail polish that I do use, and explain kind of some of the techniques that I'm using, because sometimes I will use pen to kind of trace out what I'm looking to do on the bait, and then use nail polish to paint inside the lines, or use a toothpick to dip in the nail polish or go around the borders to create kind of an outline, or even color in the lines to create some of these patterns. So I'm kind of figuring it out as I go. I'm learning little by little. I've only made a handful of homemade baits at this point, literally like 6 or 8 of them total, and they don't always run right, but it's fun to spend the time making my own baits. I'm cutting out my own lips. I'm carving and sanding everything by hand. So it's fun, but it's low tech right now, right? I don't have the high power tools and the airbrush and all of the latest and greatest technology. A lot of these I'm actually painting my own eyes on, so it is what it is. But that fun nonetheless, no doubt about it. And you're right about that, Will. Once I actually catch fish on my homemade baits, I think it'll be that much more rewarding for sure. I'm excited about that. You say I used some of my daughter's nail polish to repaint a few baits and jig heads. Yeah. No, and at this point I've got like paint pens in a lot of different types. Shoot, I'm breaking up. I'll get better with the nail polish, and it'll be that much better. Well, yeah, I agree. Right now it's still a little bit sloppy, so it's tough to apply properly. But guys, if Will says that I'm breaking up and it's already about 11:30 my time, it's late for a Thursday night. I've got my kids all day tomorrow, so I'm going to dip out of here, but I super appreciate your guys' attention and your support, everything. So if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button. If you have, thank you very much. I appreciate your support. Guys, keep an eye out tomorrow night just in case I go on because there is a good chance that I will. I'm hoping, and I'm supposed to get a package in the mail tomorrow. So look out for a stream tomorrow night at about 9 p.m. my time, 11 p.m. Eastern, and we'll go from there. Okay. One more flash at the manufacturer that we're looking at tomorrow night. Different bait than that one I just showed you, but that color pattern and profile should tell you what we're looking at tomorrow. So don't say it in the comments right now, Matt. I'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully. Okay, guys? Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one. Peace.